After years of silent sacrifice, she finally revealed her incredible surprise for the cowboy. Sarah stood at the counter of the diner, the scent of strong coffee mixing with sizzling bacon as the sun pierced the horizon. Her hands trembled slightly, wiping down the surface, the anticipation whispering inside her. Today could be the day she finally told Ben about her surprise, the culmination of her dreams and his. But would he understand? Would he see it as a betrayal of his own devotion to Rodeo? She felt a suffocating tightness in her chest. Her life was a constant balancing act. Each morning meant waking before dawn, putting on her waitress smile while internally wrestling with dreams buried deep beneath years of sacrifice. The ranch, a lonely patch of land now, was all she had left of her father. It stood like a monument to lost ambitions, a place where the scent of fresh hay mingled with the weight of memories. Riding, roping, winning. It had been her father's dream that had turned into a comfortless shadow. Could she dare to breathe life into it? Or would that mean stepping away from the light she had given to Ben's aspirations? As she served the final table, the whispers of doubt consumed her. The small-town murmurs about women not belonging in the rodeo echoed in her mind, drowning out the clarity she found in her father's journal, a treasure unearthed days earlier. His dreams, barely articulated in faded ink, stirred something deep within her, a yearning she had long suppressed. How could she share this with her son? Could he accept that she too wanted to ride? That she too had dreams ignited in the same dusty rodeo rings he adored? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But the weight of her secret loomed larger than ever as she climbed into the saddle behind the barn, practice brightening her spirits, but also igniting her fears. Each gallop resonated with the thrum of the old horse's heartbeats, her body beginning to remember what it meant to be free, yet the stakes morphed into shivering equations. Should she tread this line between mother and competitor? What would the townsfolk say? The same eyes that scrutinized Ben's dreams? Would they see her as a hero or a misguided fool? The more she practiced, the deeper the tension coiled. Ben would soon face the upcoming competition, a pivotal moment he had prepared for tirelessly, and there she was, greedy with passion and fear. What if he resented her for taking attention away from his big moment? It churned inside her, a storm of chaos, pride wrestling with the paralyzing anticipation of his reaction. Would telling him shatter their bond, or build a new foundation of shared dreams? As the day of the rodeo loomed closer, anxiety nipped relentlessly at her heels. The fear, sharper than any rodeo blade, whispered that she was too old, that a woman driven by dreams of a long-gone era would be met with scorn. She would need to confront not only the expectations of the town, but also the shadowy doubts lurking within her own psyche. Would she finally rise like the champion her father had never been, or would she fall short, exposing her son to the relentless judgment that haunted them both? The question hung heavy, a storm cloud bearing down as the gate stood just wide enough for both of them to slip either into victory or failure. Sarah stood alone in the barn, the sun dipping low on the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to mimic her doubts. The heaviness in her heart pulsed with each breath as she watched Dusty, the old mare, munching hay in the corner. There was something ethereal about the quiet courage emanating from the horse, a reassurance that urged Sarah to confront the truth she had buried for so long. With a deep breath, she tightened her grip on the reins and glanced at the journal laid open on a nearby hay bale. Her father's scrawled words gleamed with an energy she longed to channel. Beneath the pain of her memories was a flicker of hope that she might not only chase her dreams, but also reclaim her identity as the woman her father envisioned. She was more than just Ben's cheerleader, she was a competitor in her own right. The fear still pushed against her, a physical weight tugging at her resolve. Would Ben view her ambitions as a threat? She envisioned his initial reaction, a picture reliant on years of understanding between them. But then the darker thoughts intruded. Would he feel she was stealing his limelight, overshadowing the dream he had spent years building? Was she selfish to desire this when he needed her support more than ever? A sudden noise interrupted her reverie. Ben trotted into the barn, still sporting his worn cowboy hat, a semblance of excitement in his gait. The faint line of tension on his brow was unmistakable, the culmination of weeks spent preparing for his big rodeo event. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah's breath caught. His enthusiasm made her heart swell with pride, but it also amplified her uncertainty. Here was a boy on the brink of discovery, and she was standing in his way. "You ready for the big day?" Ben asked, his voice bright but infused with an underlying anxiety. "Yeah, I've been thinking about it," she replied, forcing herself to muster a smile. The cheerful tone felt foreign as the weight of her secret clung to her shoulders. Before she could think further, Ben pointed to Dusty with a grin. "We could use her in the competition, you know. She's just as fast as she was back then." A bolt of realization surged through her, igniting a fire she thought had long since burned out. "Actually, Ben," she hesitated, weighing her words. The urge to share her passion bubbled to the surface, battling the silent fears still entrenched in her heart. "I've been thinking about me riding in the rodeo, just one time." "What do you mean?" His face contorted from excitement to confusion, the innocence hanging between them. "Rodeos aren't just for men, you know," she said, her voice trembling with intent. "I want to honor your granddad and show that women can compete just as well." His expression shifted, a mix of shock and realization crossing his features. "Wait, you? Competing?" The words hung thick between them, palpable with tension. In that moment, Sarah could see the internal struggle reflected in Ben's eyes. Would he accept her as more than a mother? As someone who could chase a dream alongside him? "Mom, but what about—" "It's about time, isn't it?" This assertion demanded an answer, the resolve in her voice wrapping around their moment of truth. As she braced herself for the response, the looming uncertainty of the rodeo flickered in her mind, an unyielding test of her courage. Would Ben understand? Would this be a step towards liberation, or would she slip back into the shadows, forever intertwined in the support of his dreams rather than affirming her own? The silence stretched, heavy with anticipation, as both mother and son stood on the precipice of an undeniable choice. The moment of realization was at hand, and Sarah realized she had to embrace not only her own dreams, but also their connection forged in shared aspirations. It was time to face the question she feared most. Would they soar together, or would personal ambition threaten their bond? With a deep breath, Sarah prepared to confront whatever came next, knowing that once the truth was unveiled, there would be no turning back. The air in the barn seemed to shift, swirling with unexpressed tension as Sarah held her breath. Ben stared at her, caught between shock and an overwhelming tide of emotions. The essence of this moment was palpable. It was a threshold, yet she felt the floor beneath her shift as doubts loomed. "Mom," he started, his voice wavering as he grappled with the implications of her words. "What will people say? You're not... Well, you're supposed to be here for me. This is my competition." His youthful confusion stung. She had expected some level of support, but instead, there he was, his gaze tumultuous. The thought of becoming nothing more than an anomaly in his world of cowboys tightened the knot in her chest. "I support you, Ben, and I've always been proud of you," she said, hoping her voice conveyed the depth of her feelings. "But I need to find my place too. This isn't just about rodeos or competitions. It's about reclaiming a part of myself that has been lost in enabling others." Ben shifted his stance, his arms crossed, the protective mechanism of a child faced with an unexpected challenge. Beneath it all, she felt the connection they had nurtured over the years teetering dangerously close to fracture. "You don't understand. If you ride, they will think I've had help, like I can't do it alone," he protested. "What if it distracts the judges? What if they think I'm not good enough without you around?" "Ben," she interrupted, frustration merging with compassion. "This is about empowerment, not theft. It's about proving that women belong here too, not just on the sidelines, but right in the middle of it all. You don't lose your shine by letting me have a moment in the spotlight." His eyes widened as he processed her words, yet the battle continued within him. Her heart raced, caught in the crossfire of his fears. Could he even fathom what his acceptance would mean? The silence that settled was filled with unsaid thoughts, the doubts, the fears, and perhaps even a glint of understanding. Sarah could almost hear the clock ticking down, the moments slipping away, moments she could either grasp or let slip. "Mom, I believe in you," he finally whispered, and for the first time, uncertainty was tinged with something hopeful. "But what if you fail?" With the risk laid bare before her, an unexpected clarity surged through Sarah. "Then I fail, but I need to try. For the first time, I need to prioritize my dreams too." The gravitational pull of her decision left her breathless. She was not merely a mother, nor merely a faded reflection of his aspirations. She was a participant, a contender. But would her newfound resolve be strong enough to overcome the residual doubts that still clouded Ben's mind? "Okay," he whispered, the word hardly more than a breath. But it held promise. "We can talk about this. Just not now. Can we wait until after the competition?" The proposal resonated. There would be time to prepare, to craft a plan that wouldn't overshadow his moment, but would allow them to share the stage in their individual ways. "Of course," she replied, the warmth of his acceptance igniting something fiercely hopeful within her. She turned her gaze to Dusty, who stood as a silent witness, her head held high in a world of doubts, yet so ready to stride forward. Could she channel that same spirit? With a newfound determination, Sarah envisioned herself taking to the reins, leading not just for herself, but alongside Ben in their shared journey. Yet even as she felt this surge of optimism, a question loomed. Would their bond, however momentarily shaken, emerge stronger, or would it remain changed forever? The shadows that danced in the barn seemed to whisper a caution. She had taken the first step towards venturing into her unknown, but the road was still unlit. That night, as Sarah lay in bed, the stars shimmering above the barn, one thought struck her. The rodeo awaited, and so did the revelation of who she could truly become. But even more concerning was the echo of Ben's lingering doubts. Their shared path forward would demand clarity and commitment, not just for herself, but for their relationship. She would have to show him that vulnerability could serve as the foundation for strength. The truth needed not to fracture their dream, but could become the very glue binding them closer together. Tomorrow brought promise, but it also beckoned the challenging dialogue still to come. As a sense of resolve washed over her, she realized that next they would have to face the community, the friends and family who had expectations and history tightly woven into their lives. How would they respond? Would they embrace her dream or cast her back into the shadows? The rodeo might unveil more than competing skills. Perhaps the essence of who they were together would be the ultimate test, and with that thought, Sarah drifted into an uneasy sleep, the questions of tomorrow igniting a fire within her. The dawn emerged reluctantly from behind a veil of clouds, the barn standing silent yet vibrant with the smell of hay and animal warmth. Sarah lay awake, mind swirling with thoughts, her body physically tired yet bubbling with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. Today was not just another day, it was a pillar that could either stabilize her newfound identity or crumble under the weight of expectations. As the morning light crept into the barn, she watched as Ben groomed Dusty. Their horse, a steadfast companion through both victories and failures, seemed unaware of the storm brewing between mother and son. In this quiet moment, Sarah observed Ben, a boy on the verge of manhood, but still tethered to the innocence of childhood. Yet there was also a flicker of determination in his eyes that reminded her of herself. "Ready for today?" she finally asked, her voice a careful blend of encouragement and unwavering resolve. "Yeah, I think so," Ben replied, the words somewhat robust, yet edged with uncertainty. His gaze shifted briefly to her before returning to Dusty. "What about you?" She offered a smile, though it felt strained, both an assurance and a mask for the bubbling intensity inside her. "I'm ready to show everyone exactly who I am." The gravity of her convictions seeped beneath the surface, challenging her to confront not only the competition, but the deeper layers woven into her relationship with him. Yet the commitment to pursue her own ambitions meant taking risks that could distinguish her, but could also splinter their bond. Once Ben finished grooming, they eased Dusty into the brisk morning air. The world outside was vibrant, flush with life as the sounds of laughter and excitement echoed from afar. Friends, critics, and community all congregating to celebrate rodeo culture. Each sound pressed against her heart, a firm reminder of the community she had once felt so at home with and now feared would judge her. As they approached the arena, the noise intensified, but Sarah focused inward, ready to prepare for the inevitable confrontation. Every corner carried familiar faces, some encouraging, others critical. What would old friends think? Would they welcome her, or would they stifle her in their neatly contained boxes of expectation? "Mom, are you sure about this?" Ben's voice pierced her thoughts, layered with his protective angst. "I need to be brave for us both," she answered, surprising herself with the strength in her own voice. It felt different, infused with a newfound authority over her choices. "We'll lean into this together." As she stepped onto the soft dirt track of the arena, a wave of familiarity hit her like a rush of wind. The scent of sweat, leather, and hay filled her lungs sharply, awakening memories long pushed aside. This was not just about a competition. It was about reclaiming a lost piece of herself, the fierce ambition that had been buried under layers of motherhood and obligation. When the time came to ride, she mounted Dusty with a steadiness that surprised even her own nerves. Feeling the gentle rhythm of the horse beneath her, she glimpsed herself reflected in the excited faces around her. The realization consumed her. She was not merely an audience member or a supporter. She was a competitor with a right to be there. The tension around her coiled as she prepared to enter the arena. She spotted Ben at the sidelines, his brows knit in worry. The weight of expectations pressed down on her, but within that burden shimmered the hope of change. As she rode forward, the cheers of the crowd and the muted thoughts of self-doubt mingled in her ears. For the first time, she was not doing this for anyone else. She was reclaiming her own spirit, carving her identity amid the chaos. Then the moment of truth arrived as the announcer called her name. The world fell silent, the cheers dissipating, and all that remained was the pounding of her heart and the breath of her horse beneath her. For Ben's sake and for herself, she needed to ride with intention, not just to compete, but to carve a new path where both mother and son could thrive, together yet apart. And at that moment, there was no turning back. But just as Dusty began their first sprint forward, she noticed a figure among the crowd, someone whose unexpected presence threatened to unravel everything she had fought for. As the stadium erupted into a swirl of muted gasps and eager whispers, Sarah's stomach tightened into a knot of apprehension. She hardly registered the heat from the sun beating down on her brow. Her focus was solely on the figure standing among the crowd. It was Randy, an old friend from her past, someone who had always harbored ambitions of his own, ones they once shared. The unmistakable smirk on his face held a combination of pride and judgment that made her pulse race. Dusty, sensing her unease, hesitated momentarily, causing Sarah to grip the reins tighter. It was supposed to be her moment of reclamation, yet Randy's presence acted like a fog creeping in, threatening to cloud her resolve. The past wove itself around her, each memory conflicting with her present intentions as she felt the weight of who she was and who she had become. "Why now?" she murmured to herself, battling thoughts that echoed deeper insecurities. Why show up after all these years? Could he sense the vulnerability behind her carefully crafted exterior? She barely diverted her gaze from him as he scanned the crowd, seemingly uncaring and utterly confident. The announcer's voice broke through her thoughts, calling her name again. It was a gentle nudge nudging her back into the moment, reminding her of the audience beyond the familiar faces, those who believed she could rise above the shadows of motherhood and past failures. She drew a steadying breath, letting it fill her with the idea that she deserved this, not just for herself, but for Ben as well. The barriers of self-doubt shone like an incandescent light, overpowering the dim memories of inadequacy that had long haunted her. This was not the time for fear. This was an opportunity to channel the strength she had rediscovered in herself. She calmed Dusty, feeling the warmth of their bond as he responded to her silent call for focus. With a determined flick of the reins, she thrust her body forward. The crowd faded into the background as what mattered became crystal clear. The rhythm of galloping hooves against the earth, the adrenaline racing through her veins, and the fire igniting within her. Yet just as she began her advance, the unsettling feeling of someone watching closely weighed heavily on her mind. Randy was no stranger to competition. He had once pushed her to be her best, and amidst the challenge, there had also been a hint of sabotage. Would he make this moment about him? She pushed thoughts of the past aside, propelling herself forward. Each stride of Dusty brought her closer to the finish, and with it, an inner strength long buried began to pulse through her. The wild cheers from the crowd surged, drowning out self-doubt. They echoed like a mantra, affirming her place not just in the competition, but in a legacy she had begun to craft anew. But then came the chilling realization. The tension in her stomach spiked anew as the figure of Randy shifted closer to the edge of the arena. His gaze locked onto her with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. She felt an unsettling energy between them, a silent challenge thrown into the open air. As she crossed the finish line, her heart soaring with triumph, a sense of dread washed over her. Winning this moment would mean nothing against the facade of her past still lurking. With the loud cheers slowly fading and Dusty slowing to a trot, Sarah caught her breath and searched out the crowd. She needed to confront this unyielding remnant of her history. But the real confrontation lay ahead, as Randy's lips curled into that same infuriating smirk. A new obstacle had just emerged, one that promised to upend not only her success, but also the fragile bond she was forging with Ben. That day had brought clarity, yet in the bedrock of relief, a deeper uncertainty brewed. She had risen, but would she have to fight again to keep her aspirations alive? As she dismounted Dusty, taking a moment to steady herself, she realized that her journey was far from over. A different kind of battle loomed, one that would require her to confront not just her own fears, but a past that seemed eager to reclaim its hold. In that moment of clarity, she resolved to face Randy head-on. The time had come to confront not just an ally turned adversary, but the ghosts of her former self. Would she allow her past to dictate her future, or would she forge a new path, unencumbered by the shadows of what once was? Sarah inhaled deeply, feeling the charge of adrenaline still surging through her veins, but now it was mixed with an undercurrent of determination. The arena echoed with applause, each clap a reminder of support. Yet she felt another sound creeping into her consciousness. Randy's mocking laughter, a ghostly whisper tied to memories lost and found. Dusty, calm beneath her, provided a reassuring presence as she glanced once more at Randy, who was now weaving through the crowd, a confidence she found both infuriating and unsettling. Did he believe she would crumble at the sight of him? Did he think this would be the moment she cowered back into the shadows? Shaking off the remnants of uncertainty, Sarah planted her feet firm and resolved to own her space. She approached Randy, her heart thumping steadily in her chest, a rhythm she could trust. "You made quite the entrance," she said, steeling her voice against the clamor of the crowd. Even to her own ears, she sounded strong. Randy turned, his expression shifting from casual enjoyment to one of mild surprise. "Sarah, I didn't expect to see you riding again," he said, a hint of condescension threading through his words. "Still trying to chase dreams that were never meant for you?" That hit harder than she anticipated. The weight of his challenge pressed against her, a barbed reminder of insecurities she was striving to overcome. But instead of letting it fester, Sarah locked her gaze with his, searching for a crack in that smirk she found so infuriating. "It's never too late to pursue what matters," she replied, her voice steady. With each word, she solidified her belief in her choices, in the uphill climb she had dared to undertake. "Ah, but will you hold up when the pressure rises?" he countered, folding his arms as if simply awaiting a spectacle. There was a glint in his eyes, a competitiveness that she had once thrived under. But now she sensed hostility, a conflict not just from him but within herself. What was she willing to risk to prove him wrong, to show that she had changed? "Pressure builds diamonds," she shot back, feeling her pulse quicken despite the outward calm she projected. "And maybe I've just been waiting for the right moment to shine." For a moment, she saw the flicker of doubt cross his face. Was that a chink in his armor? But he quickly masked it with laughter, a sound filled with derision rather than malice. "And what makes you think you're a diamond, Sarah? It's easy to claim victory in a moment of applause." A tightness coiled around Sarah's chest, mixing indignation with a flicker of inspiration. The applause had felt real, and if she was going to be measured by her response instead of what others perceived, then she needed to turn the tables. "I think I've already made my mark," she said, surprising herself with the conviction in her voice. I have someone counting on me now, someone who sees me as more than just a past. Ben? His voice was incredulous, the laughter turning to something darker. Big ambitions for a mother, don't you think? Each word stung, and for a moment Sarah almost faltered. But she remembered the feeling of Dusty's stride beneath her, the feeling of victory coursing through her veins. How I reshape my life isn't up to you. You completely underestimated the depths a person can reach when they're motivated by love. As the crowd began to lose interest, drifting toward other conversations, Randy's smirk shifted, revealing a glint of anger hidden behind his bravado. This was the moment she could draw a line, a moment not just for herself, but for the future she had envisioned with Ben. The tension heightening, she leaned closer, lowering her voice to just above a whisper. Let's see who the real victor is when it counts. Because I'm not backing down. Randy's eyes narrowed, and a sly smile crept back onto his face. I wouldn't dream of it. But remember, Sarah, I won't be easy to forget. As she turned to leave, the veil of apprehension seemed to lift just a bit more. Each step took her closer to a future unchained by resentment, a purpose solidified, and a promise made to herself. But within that promise lay uncertainty, a new path she still had to navigate, riddled with shadows of the past and a test of her convictions. As she walked away, a determination brewed within her. It was time to formulate a plan, to enlist allies that mattered, and prepare to dismantle the condescending barriers Randy represented. Each step echoed the birth of a new resolve. She wouldn't just reclaim her place, but redefine it. Yet lurking beneath it all was an undeniable question. Was that enough to withstand the upcoming storm? Or had she just crossed a line that would ignite a competition far more intense than she anticipated? Sarah stood beside Dusty in the stables, the scent of hay and leather enveloping her like a familiar blanket. As she groomed him, the rhythmic brushing barely registered against the whirlwind of thoughts in her mind. The encounter with Randy had ignited something within her, an iron-bound resolve mixed with a raw fear that clawed at her insides. She had no intention of shrinking back into quiet obscurity. This time, she would be seen. The weight of her past, once a heavy shackle, now transformed into a driving force. If she were to break the cycle of self-doubt, she needed to have a plan, a tangible strategy to outmaneuver Randy. She was linked to Dusty in ways that transcended mere riding. They were partners now, grounded by a shared intent to overcome. "All right, boy," she murmured, feeling his powerful muscles ripple beneath her touch. "We've got work to do." The arduous journey of building her confidence required more than skill. It demanded the willingness to confront feelings of inadequacy that had shadowed her for years. Randy's voice echoed in her mind, each taunt a testament to the doubts she battled daily. Yet that confrontation had galvanized her. She recalled her interactions with other riders. The camaraderie and rivalries rendered the arena a complex web of relationships, adrenaline, and competition. But the stakes had now changed. She needed more than recognition or applause. She wanted to carve out her place, not just in the eyes of others, but in her own reflections. Deciding to connect with more experienced riders became the logical next step. They had wisdom to share, techniques to teach, and stories that mirrored her journey. The thought filled her with both excitement and trepidation. What if they dismissed her? What if they saw her as just the single mother trying to reclaim a long-lost aspiration? With her determination now sharpened, Sarah stepped from the stables and headed toward the lodge, where other riders gathered for a debriefing session after the previous day's events. She quickly scanned the faces within the room, noting the familiar yet intimidating presence of Julia, a formidable competitor whose skills were both revered and feared. Gathering her courage, Sarah approached Julia, who was reviewing her notes in solitude. "Excuse me, Julia." Her voice held an edge, brave yet hesitant. The other rider looked up, her expression unreadable. "Yes? I'd like to improve my performance. You've been so successful. I was wondering if you'd share some pointers," Sarah asked, a lump forming in her throat. Beneath those words lay vulnerability. Each syllable was ripe with the possibility of rejection. Julia regarded her, scrutinizing her for a moment that stretched into eternity. Then, a flicker of interest sparked in her eyes. "Let's start with your technique and build from there. Meet me at the arena tomorrow morning at dawn." The gasp of excitement that rose in Sarah's chest was intoxicating. Acceptance, guidance. She felt a spark inside her glow brighter, potential ignited. There was a narrow opening now, a chance to step toward becoming the version of herself she envisioned. Yet as the euphoria settled, a lingering thought nagged at her. Did she have what it took to push through the tougher moments, the inevitable setbacks? What if Randy learned of her newfound alliance? Would he use it against her? Later that evening, the ambiance of the setting sun bathed the farm in shadows that hinted at late-night doubts, but she resolutely pushed through. The moments spent with Dusty, the anticipation of her session with Julia, all drove her to confront whatever came next, deciding to harness her vulnerabilities for strength rather than allow them to linger as soft targets. She prepared to meet that uncertainty head-on. Little did she know, Randy was already outlining his own plan to unearth her weaknesses, focusing on the one person who could either break or elevate her newfound resolve. With gusts of wind sweeping through her hair, Sarah felt the pulse of ambition echoing within her. It was the kind of rhythm that promised transformation, of never returning to the sidelines. But just as her path began to materialize, a message flashed in her mind, warning her. Amid growth, shadows lurked. As she lay in bed later that night, a foreboding realization settled in. The real test was about to begin, and the stakes had just risen dramatically. Would she be ready when the storm arrived? Or would she falter under the pressure of her own ambitions? The morning sun spilled through the cracked barn door, casting golden beams that danced across the dusty floor. For Sarah, dawn was more than just the start of a day. It was a breath of hope and the promise of renewal. She stood before Dusty, the gentle giant who seemed restless with anticipation, mirroring her own inner pulse. As she saddled him, every strap tightened not just around his body but around her resolve. Today was not merely a lesson, it was a declaration of her potential. While her heart raced with excitement, the tendrils of doubt crept in, poking holes in her newfound confidence. What if she disappointed Julia? Or worse, what if Randy was watching, waiting to exploit her every flaw? Pushing those thoughts aside, she led Dusty into the arena, her muscles taut with determination. Julia was already there, warming up her horse with the precise and practiced motions of someone who had spent years honing her craft. The contrast between them was stark. Julia's confidence radiated an almost palpable energy, while Sarah felt like she was still trying to light a spark. "Let's see what you've got," Julia said, her tone firm yet encouraging. As Julia watched, Sarah mounted Dusty, her knees trembling slightly. She felt the weight of expectation pressing down on her. "Just breathe," she whispered to herself, forcing her body to relax. The first lap around the arena was shaky, but with every stride, she felt a flicker of connection. Dusty responded to her growing confidence, each motion more fluid than the last. Julia observed intently, analyzing her technique. "Your posture is good," she acknowledged, her eyes narrowing as she assessed Sarah's grip. "But you need to be more assertive. Trust your instincts. You can't be weak in the saddle." Sarah swallowed hard, a mix of embarrassment and determination coursing through her. Doing as told, she pushed herself more before correcting her form. With each passing moment, fear transformed into a fierce hunger. She craved improvement. The two were soon moving in tandem, rhythmically and harmoniously, as if Dusty's spirit blended perfectly with hers. Each circle around the arena built her momentum, with Julia's constructive critiques sharpening her focus. But doubt, like an unwelcome intruder, began whispering in her ear again. What if this was all just a facade? What if she could never truly measure up? But just then, as if sensing her hesitations, Dusty snorted, pulling her back into the present. He was not just a horse. He was a partner in this fight, an embodiment of her resolve. After the session ended, Sarah dismounted, her legs trembling but her heart racing with exhilaration. "Thank you, Julia. The way you pointed out my weaknesses helped me understand what I need to change." Julia smiled, almost imperceptibly. "Strength doesn't come from never faltering. It comes from rising after each fall. Keep working at it." Sarah felt a wave of gratitude wash over her, transforming her lingering doubts into a fierce drive for the future. But amid her learning, a shadow loomed in her thoughts, the realization that each gain came with new risks. The words of Randy whispered in her mind, taunting her between the threads of her excitement. If she succeeded, wouldn't it only make her a more enticing target? As she trudged back to the stables, a determination settled deep within. This wasn't merely about proving herself to anyone, but about establishing a newfound identity for her. Still, she knew Randy wouldn't stay silent for long. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a chilling message arrived. An anonymous postcard slipped through her door, the bold lettering proclaiming, "You think you can rise, but I will make sure you fall." The stakes were rising, and with it, the intensity of her journey. Would she have the strength to confront her past? Or would Randy's words serve as another weight on her shoulders, pushing her down just when she stood to break free? The winds of change stirred ominously, and Sarah felt the brewing storm grow closer. The path ahead no longer just promised growth. Now it tinged with the threat of confrontation. The morning after the postcard arrived, Sarah woke with a newfound tension coiling in her chest. She lay in bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, the remnants of last night's message cycling through her mind like a broken record. The words seemed to echo ominously in the quiet of the early hours, forcing her to confront her fear, a fear that now felt almost tangible. She slipped out of bed and made her way to the barn, the familiarity of the scent of hay and horses offering some comfort. Dusty whinnied softly as she approached, his big brown eyes glancing at her with a mix of curiosity and companionship. It was in moments like these that Sarah sensed a profound bond with him, something that she had been missing in her own life. As she saddled Dusty, her thoughts turned to Randy. What was it that drove him to send such a cruel message? Was it jealousy, or simply a need to see her fail? But the more pertinent question lingered. Could she allow his negativity to define her journey? The soft patting of Dusty's flank urged her to reframe her perspective. Grit and resilience echoed through her mind as she whispered a personal mantra. No one can make you doubt yourself without your consent. Today, she resolved to meet with Julia for further training, not just for improvement in writing, but to cultivate her inner strength. She refused to let Randy's poison seep into her spirit. Just as she led Dusty out of the barn, she felt the sun break through the clouds, a vivid reminder that she, too, had light within her capable of dispelling darkness. On the way to the arena, the fragile seed of determination blossomed into quiet confidence. Julia greeted her with an approving nod, and today there was no cold analysis. Instead, Julia's demeanor radiated warmth, almost like a shield against Sarah's lingering fears. "Ready for today's challenge?" Julia asked, leading them through the exercises. "I am," Sarah replied, forcing the words past the tightening throat. Today, she wouldn't merely follow directives, she would take ownership of what she needed to learn. The lesson began quietly but quickly escalated. Julia pushed her boundaries with drills that challenged both writing skills and mental fortitude. Each command built upon the last, requiring Sarah to trust herself and make immediate decisions. There, in the rhythm of Dusty's gait, she felt those creeping doubts wane, replaced instead by clarity and focus. For the first time, she threw herself into the work wholeheartedly, refusing to hold back. "Good! Your confidence is showing," Julia called out, and Sarah felt a faint glow of pride. Encouraged by Julia's praise, she took deeper breaths, equating the freedom of the horse beneath her with the potential she harbored within. Yet in the back of her mind, there was still recognition of Randy's threat looming like an overcast sky. She couldn't just ignore it. After the lesson, as the sun began to drop again, she finally faced a reality she had been avoiding. It was time to confront him. Standing alone in the arena after Julia had left, Sarah felt a swell of adrenaline rush through her. It was about more than just facing him. It was about reclaiming her narrative, dismantling the fear that tied her to his shadow. She turned back to Dusty, who seemed to sense her determination, and together they shared a moment that solidified her resolve. With new clarity, she made the decision to confront her past directly and not allow it to dictate her future. As she walked out of the arena, she spied Julia speaking with another trainer near the horses. Before she could approach, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Pulling it out, the sight of a text froze her in place. "Tomorrow's the day, don't doubt your choices." Who had sent it, and was the time for reckoning truly upon her? Under the relentless sun, dust swirled in the air as Sarah stood in the barn watching Dusty munch on some hay. This was not just any day, it was the day she had chosen to meet Randy head-on. Clarity washed over her like the cool breeze that lingered outside. Each breath she took felt heavier, laden with the multitude of emotions she had suppressed for so long. But today, those emotions were her allies. The gauntlet was thrown, and she would not shy away. Randy's presence haunted her, lingering around corners of doubt, yet sparking an undeniable fire for action within herself. This was the moment for culmination, not just of her journey in the rodeo, but of her transformation into someone brave and resolute. No longer merely Ben's supporter, she was ready to stand tall on her own. As she approached the arena, each step bolstered her confidence, fueled by the lessons with Julia that had melted away layers of fear. Sarah mounted Dusty, who felt electric beneath her, sensing the urgency and determination that pulsed through her veins. Today was about proving herself not only to Randy, but to herself. The symbolism of her movement transcended beyond competition. It chiseled forth the portrait of a woman reclaiming her life. Then she saw him. Randy, across the arena, his attitude oscillating between bemusement and disdain as he leaned casually against the fence. She swallowed hard, but did not flinch. Each glance met his gaze unwaveringly. Today, she would not be ashamed or retreat. Time to settle this, she muttered, rolling her shoulders back, steeling her resolve. The crowd that surrounded the arena buzzed with energy and anticipation. Their chatter faded as she focused on what needed to be done. First, she approached Ben, who was working with another horse nearby. He looked up, his expression shifting from confusion to concern. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I'm facing Randy," she said, her voice steady with purpose. "I'm standing up for myself, Ben. This isn't just about competition. This is about asserting my right to be here, to be me." His eyebrows furrowed and his worry morphed into a supportive nod. "Then I'll be right here," he reassured her, grounding her with his unwavering belief. Sarah rode to the center of the arena, breathing in deeply as she locked eyes with Randy. His smugness fell away, replaced by something else. Perhaps he realized she was no longer the person he could easily dismiss. "Well, well, look who decided to join the fray," he teased, trying to regain the upper hand. "I'm not here to play games, Randy," Sarah stated firmly. "I'm here to show you that I don't need your approval nor your taunts to define who I am or what I can achieve." The crowd behind murmured, the tension palpable in the air. "You think just showing up makes you a competitor?" he scoffed, crossing his arms. "You've had your fun, but I've got the skill to back it up." "Skill isn't simply about speed or boasting," she replied, her voice unwavering. "It's about courage, tenacity, and knowing who you are beneath the accolades." Each word was grounded in her truth, a belief that had been repressed for so long. "I will bring my best, and you'll see how misplaced your confidence is," he hissed, a flicker of anger in his eyes. "Women belong in the audience, not in the arena." At that moment, Sarah felt the surge of everything she had fought against. The years of emotional wrestle, questions, and doubts. "No, Randy, women belong wherever they choose to be, and today I choose to compete," she declared fiercely. Just as she maneuvered Dusty forward, the crowd erupted in applause, the supportive cheer lifting her spirit higher. She could feel the robust energy vibrate off the audience. This was no longer just a physical competition, but a declaration of her ambitions. "Bring on the competition," she exhaled, embracing the whirl of excitement coursing through her. The stakes had elevated. Her dreams were no longer just wisps of ambition, but tangible realities transforming before her. No matter what happened next, she had already conquered her greatest challenge, the power of her own conviction. Her ride was exhilarating. The cheers ringing in her ears became a symphony of affirmation, becoming the backdrop of a moment that was entirely hers. Every stride was a testament to her growth, a howl against the oppressive whispers that marked her past. No longer merely a participant in the rodeo, she was a woman unmistakably carving her place in the sun. And as she finally dismounted, the overwhelming sense of accomplishment surged within her. Yes, there would be more battles, but for now, she had triumphed over the greatest adversary, herself. She could trust in her journey, and as she walked off to where Ben stood waiting, pride gleamed in his eyes. In that moment, she recognized that the ultimate achievement lay not in defeating Randy, but in conquering her own fears. She had committed to her identity, and in doing so had encouraged a future shaped by her bold choices. Now, as the last rays of sunlight pierced through the barn doors, illuminating the path ahead, she felt more alive than ever, ready to embrace whatever came next. The journey continued, and with it, a promise for herself, to never shy away from her truth again. Now this is your chance to join the journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for compelling transformations. Comment your reactions and theories about this impactful conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how powerful personal growth can be. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your support is crucial for continuing these powerful, heart-stirring narratives.